that this unit on thermal properties could be completed. So that is why I think maybe today's class and once नेट बंद हो गया था क्या? अभी यहाँ तो रुक गया था.
आ रही सर, आवाज आ रही है.
ओके, देयर वाज सम प्रॉब्लम, पता नहीं बीच में यहाँ मेरा डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया था.
यस.
ओके फाइन. स्क्रीन अवेलेबल है, आ रहा है ना स्क्रीन? ठीक है. So we just obtained the expression for density of states in case of 1D arrangement of atoms, 1D crystal rather. So that already we have done in our previous class. So let us not get into that. Now let us try to understand the generalized aspect of this. How we can do the same thing for a 2D crystal. This is the simplest case of say suppose 2D square lattice. This is not 2D square lattice, but this is the reciprocal lattice for a 2D square lattice, which will also be a square lattice, of course. But important thing is that this is representing K space. Okay, this is reciprocal space. Suppose this is the Brillouin zone actually for 2D lattice, 2D square lattice. So if A is the lattice constant for a 2D square lattice, then what will be the size of the Brillouin zone? This will be 2 pi by A along X direction and 2 pi by A along Y direction. So this point is chosen, this point, let me, okay. And the same thing written in the text, but let me take help of pointer. So this point is chosen as center of the Brillouin zone. So this is, you can see pi by A towards right side of this point. Similarly, same length pi by A to the left side, this one, and similarly pi by A to upper side and pi by A to the lower side. So that total overall length is 2 pi by A of the Brillouin zone. Okay, and then area will be 2 pi by A whole square. Okay, so this example is actually for 10 unit cell square lattice. Again, I mean, this is what they are saying. N is equal to 10. Okay. The main idea is, okay, how we can actually find out the density of state in that case. So basically the idea will remain same. So density of state will be like, okay, in 1D case it was L by pi, which was representing number of states per unit length of number of states per unit length of the K space. Because what was pi by L? Pi by L was, so I mean, you can say pi by L was what? This was nothing but pi by N into A, right? So this was length of each state in the K space, isn't it? For 1D case, it was length per state. So that states per unit length will be L by pi, opposite to that, opposite of this one, right? Or reciprocal of this one, times this thing. This will be total number of states. So for a 2D case, the same idea will actually replicate. And then what we have to write down there is number of we can say, yeah, number of states, per unit area of the 2D lattice. Fine. So that will be actually 2 pi by A whole square, isn't it? So per state, the area will be 2 pi by A whole square. This is going to be the area per state, because No, that's not going to be the area per state. 2 pi by NA, 2 pi by N into A whole square. That will give you the area per state. Okay. And similarly, if we have to find out total number of states, then what we will have to do, we have to multiply area per state into area of the full Boolean zone. Area of full Boolean zone. Let me write it shortly. Area of full Boolean zone will give you the total number of states in the Boolean zone. So that is how we can find out the total number of states n. Then total number of states, when we differentiate that total number of states with respect to, you can come here. I think that is here. When we take derivative of total number of states, okay. Just a moment, that is just coming here. This is already done. Yeah. So to density of state will be, this is already done. Let me not get into this. Yeah. So this is your d omega into d omega will give you total number of states between omega and omega plus d omega. So if n is total number of states from 0 to omega, then dn over d omega will give us the total number of states. That's what it means, and that is, I think, which is following in this same slide. I hope my words are making sense to you. Is it clear or any confusion? I mean, is it okay? Harish or others?
Yeah, sir, it's okay.
I don't know whether Sandeep and Rahul are present today. Sandeep, Rahul, are you present? Don't know. Maybe they are not. Okay, fine. So, I mean, in 3D case, the idea is similar. Basically, we apply all those periodic boundary conditions, which we can call the Born-von Karman boundary conditions, for three-dimensional case along all the three directions. Okay, so we will have condition like, sorry, we will have conditions like, okay, along x-axis, f of x plus a equals f of x, rather than, this is periodicity because of what you can call lattice thing. Okay, and for a crystal of finite size, that is Born-von Karman boundary condition, we should say f of x plus n1a is f of x. If we say n1a is the length along x direction, let us say Lx. Similarly, we may take length along y direction and length along z direction. And what are these lengths? These are representing size of the crystal. Okay, I mean, what is the physical size of the crystal? So now what we are assuming is that suppose our crystal is of the size L, means along all the three direction. Means suppose we have taken a crystal of cubic size, cubic shape. It doesn't have something to do with the simple cubic crystal structure or internal crystal structure of the crystal. But what we are saying is, suppose that overall physical shape of the crystal is a cube of side L. In that case, those periodic Born-von Karman boundary conditions would lead us to the allowed values of kx, ky, and kz, so that now our wave vector will be 3D. In two-dimensional case, k will be a 2D vector, right? In 3D crystal, the wave vector will be a 3D vector, which will have three components, kx, ky, kz. So the values of kx, ky, kz can vary from 0, then 2 pi by L, the same idea as we have used in the previous case of 1D, then 4 pi by L, and so on. So this is just nothing but Fourier series applied for crystal of having periodicity L. So that is just because of Born-von Karman boundary condition. So this gives us all the allowed values of x, y, and z components of the wave vector for a 3D crystal, so that volume per state, we can say one allowed value of k per unit volume. This is what it means. So what will be the volume per state? This will be 2 pi by L cube. You can realize very easily that this is going to constitute a cubic lattice. I mean, this is the reciprocal lattice for a crystal having size L, because what is reciprocal lattice? Nothing but Fourier space, Fourier lattice, right? So that will constitute a cubic arrangement of points. Means because along x direction, the length is 2 pi by L. Along y direction also 2 pi by L. Along z direction also 2 pi by L. So you have one point along x direction at a distance of 2 pi by L, another point along y direction at same length, another point along z axis along same distance. So therefore, what will be the volume of one smallest cell? That will be 2 pi by L whole cube, and that is going to be the volume per state, because one point in reciprocal lattice is representing one term in the Fourier series. I hope you remember that. We have discussed it in the previous classes. So that the volume per state will be this much, 2 pi by L whole cube. I hope that is clear. Is it okay, or any question on this part? Is this okay? Okay, fine.
Yes, sir.
So that states per unit volume, if we do the other way, so how many states will be there in 1 unit volume of the reciprocal space? That's what we are counting. It will be opposite of this, because volume per state will be 2 pi by L whole cube. So states per unit volume will be L by 2 pi whole cube. And that is nothing but V over 8 pi cube. Correct? So this gives us the allowed values of k per unit volume of k space. Exactly the same thing as I told you. So that if we have to find out the total number of states lying within a sphere of length k in k space, so same idea I think as the one here, sorry, not here, same idea as we can see in case of 2D. So if we take a sphere of radius k, what will be the total states lying within this sphere of radius k? So total states will be, this will be states per unit volume. This part is nothing but states per unit volume. And this is representing volume of the sphere of radius k, 4 by 3 pi k cube. Correct? So this is states per unit volume. This is volume. So this gives you total number of states in the sphere of radius k. Is that clear? So that if we have to obtain density of states for each polarization, so this we are talking of a particular polarization mode. So density of states, each polarization will be dn over d omega. Correct? The same thing. Okay. Means number of states, the derivative of total number of states with respect to omega at a particular value of omega will give us the density of states. So that is how we can obtain the density of states from here. So this will be nothing but L cube is nothing but V. With respect to omega we have to obtain. So first let us take derivative of k with respect to omega. This will be k square into dk over d omega. The same thing, right? So that is how we can obtain the density of state for a 3-dimensional case. That's what we are actually discussing. Okay. So that is how we can obtain phonon density of state. That was our idea at the beginning, that how we can actually find out the density of state. That was the thing to be asked. Now, having done this general idea of obtaining density of state, so what you need to calculate phonon specific heat or phonon energy, we need density of state. For that, we need d omega over dk, or omega versus k, which we call phonon dispersions. Phonon dispersion relations. Okay. So they are very important. Now let us discuss one of this is so far the formalism is generalized. We have not made any approximation as such apart from von Oppenheimer idea or periodic boundary conditions. So this idea up to here is generalized. It can be applied to any solid. Now again, I mean, then Debye made some approximation to solve this model exactly, not exactly, rather approximately, by applying some analytical formulae, and then that is what led to the Debye model for phonon specific heat, which is important. So basically, in Debye approximation, what Debye assumed is that he assumed that, let us assume the velocity of sound as a constant for each polarization mode in the crystal, and he assumed the velocity of sound to be coming from the classical elastic continuum model. And then what dispersion relation Debye took? He said, okay, let us assume that omega is simple, like v into k, because you know v is, if it is assumed constant, then velocity is omega upon k, right? That's a classical idea. So Debye assumed the classical relation between omega and k, rather velocity, he assumed to be constant for each polarization mode. And if you know you have this omega versus k, so that's a very simple linear dependence between omega versus k. And linear dependence means classical limit. I hope you had you remember those dispersion relations, right? So k approaching 0, so this is your k, this was some y-axis giving you omega. So in low wave vector limit, this was linear. So this was actually related to the classical limit, right? So that's the same thing. I mean, Debye said that, okay, let us take this variation to be of this type, so that the density of state, which is given by this formula, I hope we just now did this. So now what will be the density of state? You just have to put omega versus k, and then if you simplify the things, so k square I can find out from here in terms of omega square. K square will be omega square upon v square. So that's omega square sitting for k square. There is a v square going, which has to go in the denominator, but then we have to take dk over d omega. Or let us take d omega over dk. So d omega over dk from this graph will be v, correct? So that dk over d omega will be 1 over v. That's why this v cube is sitting here, okay? Rest, all the things are exactly the same way. So that is the density of state as per Debye model. And then what did Debye assume? That, okay, let there be n primitive cells in the specimen. Suppose the crystal is made up of n primitive cells. Then the total number of acoustical phonon modes will be n. We already did this in the last class. So total acoustical phonon modes will be n. So that if we talk of cutoff frequency, so okay, if total acoustical phonon modes is n, then if we put that n, this equation I think we have done in just previous slide itself. So this was states per unit volume. This is volume in k space. Sorry, this is volume in k space. So that the maximum number of states can be what? Capital N, isn't it? So from here we can obtain an expression for Debye cutoff frequency, which is related to the highest frequency actually, which any phonon mode can have. Why limit on highest frequency? Because maximum number of modes are going to be n. So from this equation, if I said n, suppose is the total number of primitive cells, and of course the number of maximum modes, then from here we can find out, let us put k from this above equation here as k is equal to omega upon v, rather highest value if we are saying, then that is omega d. Then that's what we have done actually, omega d and omega d cube. So from here, this is just like omega d cube over v cube. The same thing, k cube is omega d cube over v cube. So if you simplify, I leave it to you again, then you will find out this n over v comes from this L cube from here. So if you rearrange the things, you will find out that this expression you will find out for a very well-known parameter of Debye model, which we call the Debye frequency, highest cutoff frequency of the phonon modes. Atomic phonon modes cannot vibrate at a frequency higher than omega d. That's the physical idea behind the Debye cutoff frequency. So to this frequency, we can find out a corresponding wave vector as well, which we call the Debye cutoff wave vector. Again, same expression, kd omega upon v. So we are using this very basic dispersion relation again and again. So kd, the Debye cutoff wave vector, will be given by the same expression. So you may find out questions in your net exam from these kind of concepts related to Debye cutoff frequencies and Debye cutoff wave vectors. So you can find out by this simple expression the values of cutoff frequencies. So on the Debye model, if we do not allow the modes of wave vector larger than kd, yeah, that's the idea. I mean, kd is highest value of the cutoff wave vector in the reciprocal space. Okay, same thing. I mean, then the number of modes, all the phonon modes will be exhausted up to k less than kd. The same thing we already did. So if so, then we can write down the expression for a phononic internal energy, and that will be nothing but d omega. This is an integral variable, density of states around omega, probability of occupying that particular state n omega, we already did this, and energy of oscillation of a particular phonon mode, right? That is just, we are using now sort of semi-classical formalism, because density of state is following from classical approximation, omega versus k. This is sort of counting of the states, but at h cross omega is quantum harmonic oscillator energy, right? Energy of a quantum harmonic oscillator. So that's why we are using the sort of semi-classical formalism here. So if we put the values, which we already have with us, this is d omega, the density of state, same thing put here, n omega, and this is your h cross omega, correct? So that will give us the phonon energy, total energy because of atomic vibrations. And now if we assume that the phonon velocity is independent of the polarization, means whether we have longitudinal polarization or transverse polarizations, let us assume that for each of the polarization modes, the phonon velocity, means velocity of sound, in all cases is same. Let us assume this simple approximation. Then we can simply, because we will have identical integral for each polarization mode. One such integral will exist for a longitudinal mode. So in principle, total this energy should be U for longitudinal, U for transverse 1, and U for transverse 2, correct? But if we assume that, okay, phonon velocity is identical for all, then it is only the velocity which can be different from other phonon modes. Other integral will be exactly identical if you see it carefully. Then what we can do is we can simply multiply the factor of 3 to the same integral to actually get rid of 3 different integrals and approximate things within simple and single integral. That's what has happened here. And now U is actually 3V. So all these things have been, apart from omega, I think rather, this thing can be taken outside, which has already happened here. Even h cross can be taken outside. These are constants. And the remaining things are sitting in the integral. If we do little substitution, then x is equal to, let us do one small substitution. Rather, we are doing change of variable. If we do x is equal to h cross omega upon tau, which is nothing but kBt, then we can go from d omega to dx. Again, that's a little mathematical manipulation, and I'm sure you all can do it yourself. So this will be giving you the total phononic energy within Debye approximation. Okay. Now, if so, and of course, again, omega d we have replaced with this variable called xd. It is related to Debye cutoff frequency. And then we define here another thing which we call theta, which we call the Debye temperature. So what is theta is nothing but H cross omega D over Kb. You can see H cross omega has units of energy divided by Kb. This will have units of temperature. So H cross omega D over Kb, the Boltzmann constant, gives you a temperature which is called characteristic Debye temperature of the material. So whenever you are doing specific heat measurements on a material, you will come across all these terms like Debye cutoff frequency, kitna hai, what is the Debye temperature of the material. So you can get an idea from these numbers that, okay, where these numbers fit and what is the physical significance of them. So if you have a material which is having lower Debye cutoff frequency than other material which has higher Debye cutoff frequency, then you can try to relate that to the atomic vibrations and highest frequency associated with the atomic vibrations. And then you can, of course, go back to further analysis that what you can relate these values to. They can be related to bond strength, because what is the frequency of any spring, mass spring system, for example, is related to the spring constant, isn't it? Omega is equal to under root K over M. Just a kind of qualitative understanding of the results. Then you can try to relate the strength to the, or values of omega D to be to the what you call the bond characteristics. So that's all analysis part. So once this is done, then this is what is device temperature. What we have done here is nothing but we have just substituted the value of what they have done is omega D. So we have substituted the value of omega D. We have seen what is omega D in terms of that. I mean, just a manipulation in terms of K, V, all that. So this is just substitution, a rearrangement. You may find out questions in any competitive exam where you have been given number of unit cells in a crystal is this much, and this is the size of the crystal. Calculate the Debye temperature. So you just need to know N and V, and that's it to find out the Debye temperature. You may find out small questions on this also. Therefore, total phonon energy will be given by this thing. I mean, this is the same previous integral. I hope it is here. Okay, it has come from the previous same. This is the same integral here. Note this. I hope it is in your notebook. And then now what we have done is we have replaced things in terms of Debye temperature, theta D. You can check. Here we don't have theta, actually. In this integral, we don't have theta. In next integral, we have brought in theta. So means there is just this is just a simplification in terms of theta. Okay. So I'm sure you can arrive at this. Once we know the total phonon energy, then we can find out the heat capacity by taking derivative. So CV will be du over dt, and that's what they have done. Now again, derivative part we have done in the previous class, how to take derivative of Bose-Einstein distribution function with respect to temperature, all that thing. That stuff has been done. So again, I am skipping this part because you already have done this. So this will turn out to be the heat capacity, but I leave it to you. I mean, you should do the steps yourself. Don't skip them. Once this is done, again, further simplification in terms of X, the same thing, we can obtain the specific heat capacity in this particular form. Just simple simplification of the things. Now from omega D, this is in terms of omega. Now this integral is in terms of X. This is also known as Debye integral for phonon specific heat. So if you solve this integral can be solved numerically even. I mean, you can look for some analytical solution of this, but that's not easy. So usually this is solved numerically even. Then for a particular temperature T, we fix the limit of the integration. And then once you fix the limit of integration, you can integrate, because this is just X. This whole integrand integrated with respect to dx. So you can find out this as a number for that particular temperature. So where temperature will sit? Temperature will be sitting in this term as well as in xd, I think. If you go back, xd you can see XD has temperature sitting in this. So temperature is sitting in XD as well. If you plot this, this is a standard integral, and this integral will look like this: T versus theta D. I'll give this as an assignment, but let me wait for your exams. Let me not, I won't be giving it before midterm. After midterm, you have to solve this integral numerically and then obtain this kind of curve. So that is how you should see the specific heat of a material. Interesting thing is that at high temperature, you will be finding this value is matching with the Dulong-Pettit limit. I hope you remember that 25 joule per mole per Kelvin mark. So this will be the phonon heat capacity at high temperature. So this Debye model at high temperature produces the specific heat as per the Dulong-Pettit limit, and then it also takes care of variation of specific heat at low temperature. And then this model was really a success, as it explained a lot of materials experimentally as well. So these are the measurements for silicon and germanium. In term, the measurement of specific heat of silicon and germanium at low or temperature variation of specific heat. You can see the curves are matching very much. Now the difference among the curves is in terms of the Debye temperature. Debye temperature for germanium may be different as that of silicon, so that is why two curves are not matching. But yes, ultimately it should come out to be of this particular shape, and that is what is coming out. So you will say, okay, why is this 6 here? This number is 6 here, here it is 25. So actually in previous slide it is in joule per mole per Kelvin. Here it is expressed in calorie per mole per Kelvin. So you can do a conversion and then obtain the number should be same. So that is the very good success of Debye model. Now there is another thing which we call low temperature approximation of Debye model, but since I'm running out of time, so I would thank you for your cooperation and joining the class up to this time. Now since Harish was telling me that there is another class at 10:45, so I now can leave you for that class. Tomorrow I'll have one more class, and that's all. That won't be very lengthy. I think I will be summarizing this unit, and we will be briefly talking about Einstein model as well. Well, that's all for today. Any question you can type. We can answer your question tomorrow, and also quickly sign your attendance as well. Then that's all. Any question you can speak out, or even type your question in the chat box so that I can come up with the answer. I will upload all these videos now, remaining videos by tomorrow, so that you can be helped for your exam. Midterm syllabus. I think these 2 units. I think we have first two units, right? So up to all these specific heat thing and the thing which I am expecting to complete tomorrow, that will be the midterm syllabus. Let me open the syllabus and then tell you the syllabus will be first 2 units completely, I would say. Yeah, almost they are done. So first 2 units will be the part of the syllabus for midterm. Okay, any other question? Okay, fine. Then that's all for today. Thank you very much.